Hi, and welcome to Toni Time. Well, we have a wonderful show for you today. Our guest, Reverend Shirley, welcome, from Seeds of Hope.
Thank you.
Mike, welcome.
Thank you.
You've never been here before, have you?
No, ma'am.
Oh, fasten your seatbelt. And this is Karen. Karen, you haven't been here.
I'm not.
Well, you and Mike, get ready.
Okay.
Okay. Well, welcome, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good to have you.
Thanks for having us.
So, what's new since you've been on the show? I know a lot's been happening.
It has, and the reason we wanted to get together today is because we really want to talk about homelessness in our community, and that's something that we've been really engaged in since I saw you last. We created a homeless initiatives task force.
Oh, really?
And have people from around the community participating. We have representatives from different social service organizations, the police department. We've invited the fire department, the hospital. We really want to get a large number of people together to figure out how we can address homelessness in our community. So that's our big push.
Wow. So all of these people are putting in their thoughts and helping with the plan.
Yes.
Great. Great. So how has the winter been?
The winter's been really hard. There have been a lot of multiple nights of very cold weather. We have given out over 20 winter sleeping bags, tents. When it's down below zero, we try to make sure that people are able to crash on a couch or be inside out of the weather. But for many of the nights, they're not. So it's been a hard winter.
Oh, I'm sure. So what is your goal on this? I mean,
well, the goal is to get everybody inside.
Okay.
And we take, one step at a time. One of the things that has happened since I saw you last was we presented before City Council, and City Council was very open and responsive. One of the things we discovered is that people living outside after 8 o'clock at night had no access to a bathroom. And all of our work is about human dignity. And certainly comfort, and certainly maintaining the parks so there isn't, human body waste in the parks, but it's mostly about human dignity and safety. So the City Council responded. There's now a porta potty in Mechanics Park. And we also have a partnership that came out of our work with Biddeford Housing Authority and York County Community Action for a property that's going to be, we hope, construction will start this summer, where they will provide, Biddeford Housing Authority provides the facility, York County Community Action provides the case management. It's like the Housing First model, which is across the country. Which is if you provide people housing and case management, they will be successful. So that's a project that has come out of the work of the task force. And we're working very closely with the city planning department. They're bringing in Maine Housing Authority in a couple weeks, and we're going to be sharing with them the realities of what's going on here around homelessness. And we're just trying to bring more and more smart brains together to try to find a solution.
Wow. Now, Mike, Karen, Reverend Shirley did not want to do this show without the two of you at all. Okay. So what do you do?
Sure. I will defer to the lady
Want me to
first.
go first? Okay.
Yes, Karen.
So I'm here with Shirley representing the school department,
Okay.
and kind of want people to have an idea that homelessness might not appear what you think. We have about 47 kids currently in the school system that are homeless, and average, that's approximately 100% underreported, because we have kids that are couch surfing that aren't telling, they're embarrassed, they're not bringing forward that they're homeless, whether it be through situations of opiate abuse, or they don't feel safe at home, or some of them are families that through the development and gentrification of the city, housing prices have skyrocketed, evictions have gone up, so they're either doubling up or living in hotels. That is considered homelessness under McKenty-Vento Act. So really, what can we do to help those kids, those 47 kids and beyond? We are required to provide transportation wherever they may be. We don't have a youth shelter. If they're not with their parents, we don't have a youth shelter close, except in Portland. So we do have to sometimes transport kids if they're in other communities. I think one of the biggest things is that I'm proud of, I guess, is that the school is doing ACEs training, which is Adverse Childhood Experiences Trauma Training. So all the schools will be trauma sensitive. And that's really being aware that maybe a kid looks like they're acting out behavior-wise, but they're dealing with a realm of issues. If a kid can't, if they're homeless and they can't have their basic needs met, they're not able to learn.
No.
So it's really identifying those kids that need that extra support and attention, really working on how do we get them in a place where they can succeed. Because building resilience ultimately builds success. If you can get them with their basic needs and have a trusted adult who connects with them, there's a lot of children who go through trauma.
Oh, yeah.
In my own circle of friends, you grow up with trauma. But if you can build that resilience, they can be successful adults. So it's really taking that whole piece and kind of getting those kids in a safe place. They're not, like our kids aren't necessarily, we don't have a lot of kids who would carry around backpacks. They don't want people to know they're homeless.
Well, of course not.
Or they don't need a backpack because they're kind of just beg, borrow, and stealing to see if they can borrow, can I sleep on your couch? Can I sleep on your couch? So it's sad. We've been fortunate that the city has given, I guess it's not really the city, the Cartmill Trust has given us money each year to buy winter wear for kids. Each year they've given us $5,000, and we have spent it each year on coats and mittens. We have donations through the Biddeford Education Foundation for kids that are homeless and maybe they had to leave their house in an emergency and they don't have anything. They don't even have more than a couple outfits. And we have been fortunate to, in some of our schools, but next month we should have all of our schools will have washers and dryers. So kids will have the ability to wash their clothes. 'Cause a kid doesn't want to come to school if they don't have clean clothes. I mean, it's little things like that that can really have an impact on children.
Are some families stepping up to help if they're couch surfing? I mean, are they?
Yes. We have a lot of families that are doubling up. So if my whole family moves in with Shirley, I'm still considered homeless because I don't have a home. So we do have families stepping up.
Okay, good.
But you do have to be careful because you can't have some of our new Mainers, they have a lot of children, and if they're doubling up, you can only have so many people living in a home per code. So.
Wow. Mike?
Yeah.
Your turn.
Should have gone first. Well, and that is great. I think something that we all should be aware of, especially with the work that Karen's doing, because Shirley and I get the adults a lot of times, and you're dealing with the children, and I think of that as preventative care, because especially with that ACEs, children who are exposed to 4 or more of those traumatic events are 12 times more likely to take their lives. They are more likely to have a mental illness diagnosis. They're more likely to be a drug user or an alcoholic. So if we start as a community now at that level, when they get to the adult level where we usually see them at, they might not need the services that we are able to provide because it was taken care of as a community. Yeah. And that's what it's about. My role in all of this is Shirley and I have come to know each other because of the VA down in Sanford. We were on a couple of task force together, one of those being homelessness, as well as suicide prevention. And so we hit it off. Obviously, we're very close in such a short amount of time, and we saw a need. And the great thing is that she's here in the Biddeford community, I'm here in the Biddeford community, and Saco. And what we do, so I'm with Volunteers of America, and we're a nationwide program. We have 46 affiliates throughout the country, including Puerto Rico as well. And what an affiliate is it's a local office of our company that provides specific services to the population at large. So for Northern New England, we cover Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont, though we're slowly moving west to New Hampshire and Vermont. And we provide a multitude of services. We have behavioral health programs here in Biddeford and in Saco and in Portland and South Portland. We have senior housing that's affordable for senior citizens, all the way from Loudon, New Hampshire up to Old Town and then to the coast. We also have reentry services, so male adults who are coming out of prison can assimilate back into the community and be successful and prevent that high rate of recidivism that we're seeing nationwide, especially in Maine as a community. And then we provide veteran services, and that's where I come in. So I myself, I'm a Marine Corps veteran, and I'm currently still serving in the Army National Guard. And I know what it's like to couch surf. I know what it's like not to necessarily have a place to call home. And when I was going through those things, there weren't services like there are now. Community organizations and the schools and folks like Reverend Shirley, though there were small pockets of it, there wasn't the initiative and the push like there is now. So what we do is we provide transitional housing for homeless veterans, or I should say veterans experiencing homelessness. We have two programs here that are local. One's in Saco. It's the only co-ed facility in the state of Maine. And then we have an all-male facility right here in Biddeford, which is not too far from here on West Street. And a lot of folks probably heard of the newest project that we opened up in September, which is Cabin in the Woods on the grounds of the VA Medical Center in Togus. And that is permanent housing for veterans who have experienced homelessness. And 21 cabins, and they can live there for as long as they want. 16 of those cabins are what are subsidized housing, veteran specific. It's called a VASH voucher. So it's much like Section 8, but you have to be a veteran to be able to have that. And with that comes case management. We also provide case management at all of our programs. So I have 3 staff that work for me that are case managers. They're the boots on the ground. And what we have found, like Karen was saying, is that you need to meet the basic needs. And Maslow was a gentleman who he did a study in industry. He was hired to go to different companies and see who was producing more than others and why. And what was found is that basic need of food, shelter, water, and then the next tier was safety and security before you could get to success and self-actualization and healthy relationships. And so we pride ourselves in realizing, like Reverend Shirley has said, it's about dignity and respect. Yeah. That's what it boils down to. And so if we can give them a safe place where they can get back on their feet, accept them as they are, because that's who they are.
That's who they are.
And erase the stigma, because I also feel that there's a lot of stigma that comes with homelessness, and thus comes the shame and not wanting to reach out for help. And I'd also say that we as a nation, especially from Vietnam on have done a great disservice to the servicemen and women and their families, because if you look back in history, countries took care of their warriors. Even if they never went to battle, they still took care of them, and they assimilated them back into the community because they were contributing members. We failed to do that since Vietnam, and it's getting better, but it should have never gotten worse.
I agree with you. Absolutely.
So that's a little bit of what I'm doing. I mean, I'm fortunate to have these partnerships. We are as a company at Volunteers of America, because the communities rally around us a lot. My vets are taken very well care of by the communities from, not even just in the state of Maine, but from abroad. Because, we're funded in part by the VA, but largely by the kindness of others.
Yeah. Yeah. You're a lucky woman.
I am.
You have two strong voices.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what we know is that it takes a community. It takes all of us. Homelessness is a very hard nut to crack. And I think I mentioned to you when I was last on your show that one of the biggest challenges, as Mike referenced, is the stigma that happens. And a part of what we're also trying to do is to change the face and to give out accurate information. One of those myths that we always try to dispel is the fact that if you're in poverty, you probably did something to deserve it. And it's just not true.
It's not true.
At all. And people have images and stories in their mind about people who are homeless. And, as we know, we have families with children who are outside or in cars or bouncing from place to place. Are there people who do fit what we would say as a stereotype? Sure. Yeah. However, one of the other big myths that I try to fight is that, and I've had it said to me often, is, Shirley, sometimes people just choose to live outside. And that's not true. A healthy person would not choose to be outside when it's 10 degrees.
True.
And there are a number of things that contribute to people being homeless. Sometimes it's substance use disorder. Sometimes it's fleeing a domestic violence situation. There are lots of reasons. But a healthy person is not going to choose that. Something happened to bring them there. And it's our role as a, I hope, compassionate society to figure out how to work with them, treat them if treatment's required, provide support, and get them inside. Because that's what everyone should have.
They should, yeah, yeah. And I mean, it's not an easy task.
No.
It's not easy. And I mean, to kind of break it down a little bit, I mean, I'm thinking of all the children who all of a sudden they're looking around and the parents are either on drugs or gone or whatever, and they don't have the equipment, they don't have the knowledge to know what to do next. How frightening that would be. You even have adults, and what Mike was talking about, all the people in Vietnam coming over and the wars. I mean, my father was in the Vietnam War. And I've sat at the NCO club listening to these men talk about the bullets in the foxhole that just missed them. And everybody had their back. And they're a family. They experienced so much together. But for my father to go out into the real world after all of that and function, couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. So he stayed in areas around the base, the 25th Infantry Division. Fort DeRussy, the NCO Club. We're not going to go any further than that. And a lot of the men were like that. And even today,
yeah,
it hasn't changed.
It hasn't. I mean, if you think about your own family dynamic, and the fallouts that you may have with siblings or parents or whomever, it doesn't compare in the relationship you have with those that you serve with, because you're literally depending on the person next to you and behind you to bring you home safe. And if you are of a higher rank, you have that weight on your shoulders to bring these men and women home back to their families. There's something to be said about putting your life in somebody's hands wholly, 100%.
And they do.
They do. And so when you go through that, regardless of if it's peacetime or wartime, you know you can depend on them. And you can't say the same for family generally, because it's not the same.
No.
And you go through everything together. You know, you might go through basic training with individuals, and then you go your separate routes. You know, some might go to the Electric Strawberry, the 25th. Some people might go to the 82nd. It doesn't make a difference, because when you get there, you then that's still family. Everybody is in the same uniform. There's a rank structure. Everything makes sense.
Yeah.
Then you're released to the wild after it's all said and done, right? And it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't
It's
make
very
sense.
confusing. And what's the first thing you do is you go and you start drinking.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you drink 1 to remember, 2 to forget.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, most military happenings are built around the consumption of alcohol.
It is.
I mean, I'm a Marine. We were founded in a tavern in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And so, you know, every time the Marine ball happens, you go out and you drink,
Yeah.
and you're in uniform. When everybody gets together, you have a couple beers and throw some stuff on the grill. That the military is getting better around that, because they're realizing that they're setting up our service members to fail when they leave. But it's easily accessible too, right? I mean, how many of us, when we've had a rough day, unless you're going through sobriety, you just want to have a glass of wine or a couple beers and just relax and unwind.
Right.
But some people can't stop because the demons are too strong.
Too strong.
And then that's when we get them.
Yeah.
And it's not because they're lazy. It's not because they don't know how to cope.
No, it's not. It's absolutely not.
It's because that's all they have, because of the lack of education. You know, if somebody...
Management.
Right, yeah.
To deal with the trauma
Yeah.
of being in war.
Absolutely. Or being away from family, or, you know...
But then you come back to talk to your family, and you can't connect with them.
Right. Especially if you look at the World War II, Vietnam, and Korean vets, my grandfather rarely ever talked about his experiences unless they were the pleasant ones.
Yeah.
He never told me about people who died, and you know, my uncle was in Vietnam. He never talked about the death and the destruction. He always talked about, you know, Private Snuffy, who was funny and did this silly thing or did that thing, you know. I think it's great to build monuments, but how about we save the money on the monuments and start building housing and case management and medical services for all these people, not just military, but I mean, there's these monuments to homelessness in general, and
that money could have gone to them.
Thousands of dollars.
A monument doesn't mean a thing.
No. Yeah, it will last the ages of time.
Yeah,
maybe,
and then you're going to have a generation that doesn't know what it means and then tear it down.
Yes. Yep.
So it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, because you're dealing with a lot of the vets. You're dealing with children that are homeless. What about the parents? I mean, do you think the parents had children too young? Do you think that if they're on drugs and they had children too young, were they raped? You know, there's always a story somewhere there.
Mm-hmm. We just hosted for the 4th year the Point in Time Homeless Survey. It's a partnership with HUD and Veteran Services and Maine Housing, and we base it out of Seeds of Hope. Folks from the Vet Center in Sanford come up with their big van. Mm-hmm. We have both representatives of the city. Mike brought a team to go out and canvass the park and the woods, because there are some people, as we talked about, the embarrassment factor, who still won't come in to be surveyed. And some people will tell their stories and some won't, and you know, whatever it is, it's fine. We're just trying to get a handle on the numbers. Mm-hmm. And I think it's very complex to figure out why they are as they are. I know people who started out very young as parents, and it was all very successful.
Yeah.
It's hard to figure out why. I just know that we found on that day 11 people who were outside and another 22 who were couch surfing. Unfortunately, the point-in-time survey HUD doesn't care about the couch surfers, but we do, just like you all do, because we know it's not a permanent, stable situation. We also know, because of the work that we do with a number of other organizations, that that's a very low number. I just read an article that was forwarded to me from a colleague that they think that it's at least 100% higher than, in other communities they have found the difference. Some people have a distrust of a government surveying them and don't want to. We had a couple people say, yes, I am outside, but I'm not going to answer any questions.
Yeah.
And we respect that. But it's a challenge, and we don't know all the reasons why they're there. We want to work with them as much as they're willing to figure out how we can get more people inside.
Well, I've always believed that if someone, as you had mentioned, clean clothes, they have a home, or they have support, and usually the support comes from people more that become friends than family. Mm-hmm. Because the friends seem to understand, and the family has the love, perhaps, and they're not seeing what the problem is. So I have a feeling they shy away from that. And people that they meet or support, I think that's a big help to them. It's better for their self-esteem and to move forward.
One of the things I wanted to add is many of our families are one step away from that homelessness. If you look at the poverty rates and the free and reduced lunch rate at our elementary levels, which is higher because parents will usually fill out the form. When you get to be high school level, the kids won't bring the form home because they're embarrassed and don't want to admit that they need free lunch. So our rates are lower at the high school level, but that doesn't mean our need is less.
Yeah.
But at elementary level, we're looking at 60% free and reduced lunch rates.
Wow.
And Brian Litchfield does a free food distribution in the community to anyone that needs it once a month. And those families are in need of that food because they need all of their money to pay rent and their basic needs. And then we have the backpack program, which sends food home to about 200 kids. And we only have it at JFK and Biddeford Primary right now. They serve about 200 kids every Friday because we simply just don't have the money to serve district-wide.
Yeah.
So we are working with the Locker Project from Portland. They're going to be doing a pilot in Biddeford to do all of our schools. We'll have food pantries for those kids. So I'm really excited about that because that's going to be a big deal for all of those kids to have food to make through the weekend, because sometimes their only food is during school hours, free breakfast, free lunch.
Yeah.
And it's not because their parents don't care, it's because
they don't have the money.
They don't have the money. So they're eating the minimum at night when they go home, if at all. But it's not they don't care. It's that one step away from homelessness. So I don't know the numbers of why the circumstances of people are homeless. If it's, like you said, substance misuse or abuse, any of those things. But I don't think the majority of those families ever intended to be homeless.
No, probably not. You never do. I mean, you just don't. Now, talk to me more about the Locker.
Oh, the Locker Project?
Yeah.
They have just met with us a few weeks ago. They have one pantry set up in our Alternative Pathway Center, that just started last week, and the kids were really excited. They were a little surprised at first, like, why do you have food in here and we can just take it anytime we need? And there's no limit. They come and they restock. It's through Good Shepherd.
Okay.
But it's just a really nice thing where they can take the food if they need it, don't have to feel embarrassed or ashamed. Right. Many of the students at our Alternative Pathway Center are dealing with some homeless issues or rough situations at home, and are often spend the first part of their day debriefing. The woman who runs the program, the director, is also a licensed social worker, so she provides some case management in the morning, deals with, okay, I don't have a place to stay tonight, let's get you a place to stay, so that they can focus on learning and graduate and become productive adults. So they seem to really, they're excited about the food and that they can take it. I'm excited that it's going to be district-wide.
That's great.
So by fall, we hope to have it all situated. So that deals with at least the basic need of eating on the weekend.
Yeah.
And the woman from the Locker Project did tell us that if there were staff can go in and take food. There's no limit, because we don't know, just because they're working doesn't mean they aren't having issues with food insecurity.
Right. Exactly. A side note here, I got called in to substitute teach. Picture me substitute teaching. It was second graders. I haven't been in a school in years. So, I come into the primary school.
Primary.
Yeah. And I see all this food out there. I see milk and cereal and all this food, and it's 7:30. I was told to stand at the door, greet the kids. Whoosh, they went right to the food. And, of course, somebody took more than they should. Then you had somebody say, well, they took 3. I'm hungry. I didn't have breakfast. And just watching these children, they were hungry. Broke my heart, And that was a small part I saw, a very small part. But right now, the question on my mind, and I'll start with Mike. What brought you to this point? What brought you to do all that you're doing? Was there a change in your life? Was there something?
Sure. So for me, I've never worked for an organization that I can honestly say that I do what I love and love what I do. It used to be I'd wake up to make $1 to make ends meet and end the day, go to sleep, wake up and do it again, and just not really look forward to it. And I was reading How to Win Friends and Influence People, and something that has always stuck with me from that book is that you can change your job, you can change your boss, or you can change your outlook.
Yeah.
And for me, it was about outlook. And obviously, if I changed my job, that would change my boss and would affect my outlook, but I have complete control over my outlook.
Yeah.
And Volunteers of America took a chance on me. And I started in the behavioral health program, and I loved doing it. But then they opened up the Hewitt House in Saco, which is the co-ed facility, transitional living program for homeless veterans, and 10-bed facility, and a spot open to oversee it. They took a chance on me again, and here I am, and I've not really hit the ground because I feel like I'm floating majority of the time. And I've told the Reverend that I don't go and expect to change people's lives. When I go and do the work I do, my life is being changed.
Yeah.
These are my brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
That's what it boils down to. We may have never served together. We may have never experienced the same things in our military careers, but it's my brothers and sisters who are in need, and I can do something about it, and I'm going to. And if I can be a voice of change in the community until people get tired of me and they say, well, we better give him what he's looking for and he'll go away, or we're going to keep having him pounding on our door, and I'll do that. And again, it's the great partnerships that allow me to do that. It's the faith that the people that oversee me, and that's a full-time job in itself.
I have no doubt about that.
No, it's like wrangling the air. And good luck, you know. They have faith in me. You know, there's something that I did want to mention that I think that we've never really recognized is the sense of moral injury. And what moral injury is, a traumatic event that bruises one's soul. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter if you've served as a veteran. It doesn't matter if you've not served. It doesn't matter if you're a child. We've all experienced some type of trauma, and that affects us, and it rewires our brains. And I don't think we as a nation have really embraced that moral injury yet.
I don't think so either.
You know, I mean, up until recently, it was a conversation that was never had. Mm-hmm. So why do I do what I do? Because if I don't do it, who's going to?
Yeah.
And I know these folks are going to, but I feel I'm the best person to do it for Veterans Services because I've experienced some of what they're going through. Yeah. Not to say that these ladies wouldn't do a fine job, but right. I've been given a task, and something that you're taught in the military is you never quit until the mission's accomplished. Mm-hmm. And 30, 40, 50,000 homeless vets in the nation, 5,000 in New England, 64 at the last point in time survey, and we're still waiting the results for this current one. Wow. There should be zero. Homeless, period. We're a great nation in that we have everything we could want, but we're a poor nation in that we don't help our fellow man like we should.
No, we don't.
So that's why I do what I do. I mean, I could sit here all day. Do you have 2 more hours?
We can make it happen.
It's really about the relationships. I'm just fortunate. I'm blessed. And somebody saw a need, because I was one of those people that I had things going on, and I have things going on in my life that still pride gets in the way, and I don't say, hey, I need help, because I know what that's like.
Yeah.
So my staff and I, and my sisters here, and the other community members who have rallied around, instead of making people say, I need help, we're going to them and saying, hey, how can we help you?
Yeah.
That's why I do what I do.
That's great.
It's amazing. It has its bad days, I'm not going to lie, but you know what? For every bad day, there's a 20, 30, 40 better ones.
I mean, no one can expect a perfect day every day.
No.
You know, and, you know, you're doing the work with the understanding you've been in their shoes where they were. Mm. And as you said, maybe not the same experience, but you get it. You know. Mm. You know the pride. You know what they...
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. A nephew of mine, he was in Iraq. He got called like 3 times. Mm. And coming back, he can't function. You know, he's in therapy, he's on medication. As we talked about a little bit before, trying to get back into the society is really difficult for him. And
absolutely.
Yeah. And the drinking dulls the pain.
It does. And
he's 30.
That's what it's about.
Yeah. Exactly.
And he's still a he's younger, so the effects of what he's experiencing and how he's dealing with it now it's the ripple effect. Yeah. You know, it's going to impact for years to come, and it affects the community at large, because this is somebody living within the community who has contributed, and it's not a disability. He's not able, or he's not being enabled. He is hurting.
Oh, yeah.
And what do we all desire? Is that, like before the show started, we were talking about hugs. Yeah. And needing 8 hugs a day, right? Yeah. Man, a hug, you don't even have to say anything. A hug speaks words.
Well, you feel it in your body. You feel that other person's energy.
Yeah.
And it feels good. You're being touched.
Yeah.
Acceptance.
And it used to be people would rally around, the church would rally around the people, and people would rally around the church because it was a community thing. Mm-hmm. And obviously religion has changed throughout the years.
Yeah.
But something that Reverend Shirley and I always joke, we have coffee at least once a month if we can get out of our own ways. And something we've discussed many times is that, for those of the Christian faith at least, Jesus didn't hang around with the high society. He hung around with prostitutes and fishermen.
Yeah.
If you don't know a Maine fisherman, they don't have the best mouths.
No.
Right? And tax collectors. And heck, he chose one of his inner circle that he knew was going to betray him.
Yeah.
But this is who he put himself out. And this is the God that not most people, but a lot of people follow.
Yeah.
We need to follow that in a sense of see people for the people that they are.
Who they are. Yeah.
And meet them where they are.
Oh, yeah.
Whether
definitely.
they smell or if they're dirty or if they're homeless, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
That's circumstantial.
Yeah.
When you start putting your faith and a bet on somebody and give them that unbridled devotion, so to speak, where there's no boundaries when it comes to the devotion, and you can help them within the power of your means,
Yeah.
it changes lives.
Absolutely.
It really does. I'm going to be quiet now because this isn't the.
I opened that.
This isn't my time. It's
Yeah, but Reverend Shirley wanted you here, you and Karen. So.
well, first and last.
So I'm going to save you for the last.
Okay.
What drove you to this? What happened in your life or didn't happen?
Yeah, so I actually grew up in a home with an alcoholic and drug abusive father. I was about 16 when he finally went to rehab, but by that point it was 2 divorces. And fortunately, I have siblings, and so we kind of bound together to take care of each other and protect each other. And we all turned out to be, successful. We all went to college and we all got jobs. But growing up was brutal. I had a lot of teachers along the way step in and kind of be that support for me.
Yeah.
And then about 17 years ago, I joined Biddeford Saco Rotary Club, and I learned firsthand what giving back was. Most of it was, growing up, although I was in a bad situation there, I always had a home. Might not have been a safe one, but I always had a place to sleep, and I always had food.
Yeah.
So fortunately, my basic needs were taken care of. And I knew my dad loved me, despite the dysfunction.
You know that, yeah.
So that was good. But when I joined Rotary and I learned about giving back, I found that I felt better than what I was doing. Like, they would thank me, but I was the one who got more. I felt I got more out of it.
Yeah.
So I just kind of threw myself in that culture, and I ended up in a career of fundraising, which is fine. I had a great time fundraising for Waterhouse Field.
Yeah.
But I get much more out of fundraising for the backpack program, or getting the washers and dryers in place, or going shopping for the kids for winter coats and seeing their little faces when they get a new coat. I much prefer that, and fortunately my role at work allows me to do that.
That's great.
But I truly enjoy giving back to the community. I don't think communities are based on just, the general development and all that. They're based on people giving in. If everybody, I've been on a lot of coalitions, and it's so nice when everybody comes together and does something for the greater good. That's what makes a community. Yeah. It's really a lot about relationships and who you know and who can give, and it's not about just giving money.
No.
It's time, talent, and treasure. Everybody has something to give. Everybody. And just because they might have dirty clothes doesn't mean that person doesn't have something to give.
Right.
And most often, it's the people that have the least to give that want to give
I've
the
seen
most.
that over and over. The people who have the least.
It's inspiring and awe.
Yeah.
And I have I love social work and psychology, and that's what I kind of did at school. And now I'm going to move on to my master's, and hopefully I hope to be just like Martha at the Alternative Pathways Center someday. I want to have an impact. I want to make a difference in someone's life.
That's great. Now I want to go back a little bit here. You mentioned something. As dysfunctional as your father was, you still knew he loved you.
Yes.
And that is, I think, something that a lot of kids feel. You know, their father might be an alcoholic, they might be on drugs, he might be just out there, but you know he couldn't help it. You know he loved you and all of your siblings.
I did. I would assume because we were fed and he told us every night before bed that he loved us.
Okay.
But I can't pinpoint, like if I would ask my kids if they knew how I loved them, they certainly, if they grew up like I grew up, they probably wouldn't feel that way.
Right.
But back then you didn't really talk about it.
No, you didn't. But you felt it, you knew it.
No, you could, like I remember going to gym class and I had gotten the belt for something and I had this massive bruise on my leg. And the gym teacher was like, go to the nurse. And I go to because I couldn't, I'm like, oh, I can't do gym. And the nurse was like, okay, you're excused. And that's the end of it. That would never happen today.
No, no.
But we're all very resilient and we all seem to see the good in people and know that not everyone's circumstances, people are the way they are because of things that happen in their life.
Yes, that's true.
And just because those things happen to them doesn't make them bad people or doesn't make them incapable of great things to come.
Mm-mm. But I think that's a phrase you said there that a lot of children feel, and they aren't sure, but they know that person loves them no matter if they're.
Well, and most children always, they will love their parent no matter what they're doing.
No matter what.
I've seen some horrid situations, and these kids will defend their parents. They love their parents, and that's okay. But they need a positive role model.
Yeah, they do.
They need someone to care about them because they think that this is normal, and everyone's normal's different. So I'm not saying that in a bad way, but.
Who is your positive role model?
I think I'm most, probably my brother.
Okay. All right.
Probably my brother. And I had aunts and uncles.
Sure.
But we grew up in New York. They grew up here, so there wasn't, we didn't see them as much.
Right.
And I had a teacher, my 5th grade teacher. I loved him. He was wonderful.
A teacher can make a difference too, definitely. And a sibling. That's great.
So, and my best friend had great parents.
Yeah.
They had no idea what was going on at my house. I spent a lot of nights there. You'd think they would have asked.
They didn't ask.
But they were married and they were happy and they were like the, mom cooking big batches of cookies every weekend. And they were just like the ideal little family that I wish that I had.
Right, exactly.
But looking back, I wouldn't be who I am today without those experiences.
You wouldn't.
So my brothers.
Who he was, is.
Some of these kids who are the only kids, they're only children, it's harder for them. They don't have someone to lean on.
No.
Like I'm very fortunate I had siblings that
you
could protect, I guess we all kind of protected each other, but we looked out for each other and we made sure each other was okay.
That's great.
Your turn.
Yes.
What brought you to this point? What gave you this? How old? I have 1,000 questions, but you're an amazing woman. And I haven't known you that long, but I've heard gossip.
Uh-oh.
And you're amazing.
Thank you.
But what pulled you to this?
A colleague of mine says to me frequently, Shirley, God's just going to keep surprising you, because I wouldn't have guessed I would be here. My whole professional life was in higher education, which I loved, but I realized after I left it that it's an incredible bubble, that you don't see what's going on so much in the outside world unless you really are intentional about it. I guess, I mean, it's been a journey the whole life, but I guess it's probably been at the point that I took my ordination vows. I think I internalized in a way that I hadn't before, just my absolute belief that everyone, even those who make it very challenging, everyone is a precious child of God. And if I absolutely believe that, then I have to do everything in my power to treat them that way and to make sure that others treat them that way. So doing this work is very hard, and it breaks your heart a lot because people have very hard stories. But what I discovered, as you know, we've heard from Mike and Karen, is for me, when my heart broke the first time someone really, their circumstance broke my heart, I realized that my heart didn't break in pieces. It broke open so I would have more capacity of compassion and love. So I still have days where I really struggle when I hear someone's story, but I also am that much more motivated to show and give them love and compassion and tenderness. And, you know, as is all of our experience, we get it tenfold back. So that's what helps you through the hard times. And, you know, I have good friends and colleagues that we can talk to each other and support each other and make each other laugh and just remember how blessed we are. I grew up blessed with having parents who I knew wanted me and loved me, and that was never a question for me. And if I can say that to another person, I have the incredible opportunity to say to people sometimes that they are precious children of God. And to watch someone's reaction who's never had that said to them before is a blessing.
Sure.
To be able to say it and mean it, and help them to try to understand their belovedness. So
it's hard for people to accept that.
It is very hard when maybe you've been told a good part of your life that you're not enough. But that's a part of what our job is. Yes, we're about the feeding and the clothing and the job support and the advocacy and homelessness, and at the underlying part of all of that is to just let somebody know that they are beloved.
Yeah. I think you do a good job of that. Very good job. Again, gossip. Yeah. Yeah, we both know her.
Yes, we do.
Ann Hastings. So now you have a list here. Did we cover this list?
Yeah, those are the statistics from the Point in Time Homeless Survey.
Okay, because I want to make sure that when our viewing audience watches the show, they know the three of you. They know your background. They know why you're doing what you're doing. And they understand what's going on right now. Did you cover your list, Karen?
I forgot to mention one thing.
Okay, I knew it.
And that's the high transiency rate that we have at the school. Because not just people that are homeless, but because they're looking for affordable housing, they may be moving throughout different communities. Yeah. And so 1 in 5 residents have moved in the last year, and 55% of our children under 5 have moved in the last year. So it's really hard to keep on track with education when you might stop at a certain point, but they don't pick up at the same point. Because I don't know, when I was a kid, pretty much I went to school with the same kids. Nobody really moved. So you stayed on the same path for education. You knew that you ended 4th grade here and you started 5th grade here. When a kid is moving in and out of district that often, it's really hard to stay on track without missing gaps. So you're often doing repeats, trying to get them caught up.
Yeah.
So that's a education piece that we struggle with. But that was it.
Okay, well, I'm getting beeped here. I am getting beeped. How dare they beep me? But we have really had a great show. And the last part of this, if people want more information and how they can help, I'm sure at the end of the show we have your phone number, website, everything that people need who are watching the show, and you want to help and you want to give. Make a phone call, send an email. So I want to thank all of you.
Thank you very much.
Very much.
Thank you.
What a great show. Thank you for coming back.
My pleasure.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yes,
Yeah,
thanks
very
for
welcome.
having us.
Yeah, Mike, great. You guys have to come back. Karen?
Okay. I won't be as nervous next time. This wasn't that hard.
You don't seem nervous.
Thanks.
You just kept hogging my camera, that's all. All right, I want to thank everybody for watching our show, and we will see you again. Bye-bye.